Oh, Donna's not here. Okay, I think everybody's here since 2 o'clock, so let's get started. Bart, can you read the roll call, please?
Sure. Kathy Batchelor,
Here.
Donna Kuhn,
Here.
Bart Hillier, I'm here. Carol Crothers,
Here.
Laurel Dean, Jim Carden, here. Nancy Austin,
Here.
Barbara Blake, Ted Boyette,
Here.
Beth Dingman,
Here.
Steve Gilbert, here. Bev Lawless,
Here.
Scott Summers.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Okay, so does anybody have an amendment to the agenda before we adopt the agenda? Ted?
I do. Yes, thank you. I'm going to move that since we have a special meeting coming up, it was on March 1st, March 8th, that contains the substance of item 8D, that and also that I don't believe 8D has been reviewed by the fiscal affairs, financial affairs, and the board affairs committees, that we remove it from the agenda and cover it at that time. I think it starts to get confusing when we have the same item being covered at several meetings. And I also believe that at the March 8th meeting, it looks to me like the staff, David Webster, was planning to make a presentation on that exact topic.
Are you talking E or F?
I thought he said.
I am talking, right, this particular one is 8D. I do have another one after that.
Is
I'm
that
talking on 8D.
as in David? D as
Evan David, yes.
Thank you. Okay. So, hang on.
Huh?
Okay, what Ted is suggesting, that 8D has not gone through the BAC for discussion, and because of that procedural, he is suggesting that it be deleted from the agenda.
I'm still confused. Is it B or D?
D.
D.
D is in David or Donald.
Second.
Let me clarify. I'm saying that number one is it hasn't gone through the two committees. Number two, it's already on the agenda, on our special agenda that is coming up in a couple of weeks. And I think that if it's on that agenda and staff is preparing to make a presentation at that agenda at that time, according to our meeting schedule, I would prefer to have them have their report complete and ready to give on that topic.
Okay, did everybody understand that? Okay, what would be your question, Laura? He's requesting the removal of 8D. Number one, he indicated that it has not gone through the committees, which is our normal procedure, and also that it's going to be on our special agenda, which is going to be in March.
We're looking at the new agenda that's on our desk versus the agenda that was sent out last Friday. That might be part of the confusion.
I think that is part of the confusion. So would you read D? To me means major capital projects decision process.
Yes,
That's the new.
okay.
That was inserted
New agenda
recently.
is out. Yep. And it is for major capital projects decision process, which Ted is suggesting is going to be on the special agenda in March, and that it hasn't actually gone through the committees to make a recommendation to the board.
Correct.
Kathy, can Ted read the name of that item rather than just the number? Yes.
Okay, I'll read it for him because sometimes there's something that comes through kind of fuzzy even to my ears. So let me read item 8D that Ted is referring to is major capital projects decision process. And that's on the new agenda that was put in front of you for today.
Correct.
So, Carol?
Well, I have not seen that topic on the agenda for any March meeting. I mean, there was certainly for the March 1 meeting, there's a little bit confusion there because I guess the March 1 meeting is gone and we're now looking at a March 8 meeting, right? And on that agenda for March 1, there was a discussion of a procurement policy, which is only one very small piece of a board decision-making policy.
Okay, and I would agree with you. It is one small piece, but it is a part of, and I don't know that staff would even be ready for a major overhaul of financial policies at that point and get to the BAC and the FAC.
Well, it's not even a financial policy. It's a board policy on how we want to make decisions. And it's really, well, I should talk to mine because I think Laurel's is very similar to mine. And Laurel's was, I think, I should let you talk, but I think she wanted to have a general discussion so we could all reach some agreement on how we're making decisions. And then mine was an attempt to put kind of a stake in the ground of, at least for today, these can be the ways that we decide until we go through the very long process of adding language to CPM and potentially bylaw changes, which certainly should go through committee.
I'm getting confused, and that's why I think we ought to put it off. I think that we're trying to load too much stuff right now for a specific purpose that may be hidden. And I think I would rather discuss the financial things after it has gone through committees, because we have asked our members to serve on committees. And for the last 3 board meetings or more, we have not even listened to their reports. And then to go ahead and throw something like this in, a major decision, without allowing the members in the committees who have volunteered and put in a lot of time, to me, it shows disrespect to those members not to permit them to have an opportunity to discuss this in committee meetings before it comes before the board.
Okay. Yeah.
I agree with Ted. We should not be discussing how we determine the decision-making process for financial policies or process, any of that until it goes through the proper committee, whether that be the Fiscal Affairs Committee, the Board Affairs Committee, and it needs to go in front of, especially on something determining financial policies, should go in front of our attorneys also before it comes to the board.
And I think the staff should have a say too, to let us know, because they're the experts in this.
Okay. Did
Can
you
I
have
speak?
something, Laurel?
Yeah, I withdraw my item. And I have others on here under 6 and 7 that I think may be premature and maybe we don't have all the information we need to proceed with them.
Okay, so Laurel is withdrawing item 8D as in Donald. So you're not going to need a second, Ted, because Laurel just withdrew that item. And you just made another comment, Laurel, about something that you wanted to discuss, and what was that?
Well, the quarterly financial presentation and the member assistance program presentation, we have such a full agenda that I don't see urgency to those. And
Well-
under the consent agenda, I understand there's some differences perhaps in the 2 budgets that we received that we
Okay, I had asked for the minute.
I am not able to hear if something's being said right now. It was garbled for a while and then it's not coming through at all.
I'm sorry, Ted, I don't know how to fix that.
I can't hear. There's no volume to it, just very light talk.
I'm having the same problem.
Could it be the wind? There's really, I'm surprised my electricity is still on.
I don't know how to correct that, Ted.
Well, you're coming through fine
Speak
just
into the
then.
microphone a little bit better.
Yes, it's coming better now.
That's good.
Okay. Anyway, I had asked for 6A, the membership assistance program, to be put on the agenda at least a month ago because we had to pull it off of the last agenda. And I think it's important for our members. It's a short presentation and I think it's important for our members to see
Point
what
of order.
has been done to help them.
Point of order, we're discussing item 8D. And 8D is what we are discussing, and on the floor at this time. Going to another item can be done right afterwards if necessary. I have several other things, but right now we should stick to the item on the floor.
Okay, but we did, Ted. Laurel pulled that item 8D off of the agenda.
Did Carol pull hers off because she is listed as the person presenting?
Mhm.
Okay. Ted, are you looking at the current agenda that came out yesterday? The item title is Major Capital Projects Decision Process and has Dean's name after it. So there was a.
No, I do not have that.
That's the
Okay,
confusion.
what the confusion is then. Okay, Laurel had asked previously to have this item on the agenda, and it did not get on the agenda. But it is
Okay.
now on the agenda, and she has just withdrawn that.
Okay, well then, the one I'm talking about then, that's where the confusion is. It's my D, so I don't know what it is on yours, but it's board policy for GVR to follow. Then it's process approach to major capital projects, monthly project plan, and it says
Okay.
Carruthers.
Okay, that is item E now.
Okay,
And I have a
That-
second, sorry, who was the second? Was that you, Bev? Okay, Bev just seconded that item request of Ted's to pull item, which is currently 8E. Board policy for GVR to follow internal financial manual process approach to major capital projects, monthly project plan. So I have a motion and a second to pull that item 8D. E, I'm so sorry, E, as in Edward. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Is there a discussion on that? Because if not, I have a comment that came up yesterday during the Fiscal Affairs Committee meeting. And I have to find my spot. The Fiscal Affairs Committee brought this item up for discussion under new business yesterday. And they made a motion. I'm sorry, hang on just one second. Here it is. They made a motion, there was a motion and a second, and then a vote. That this item be referred back to the Board Affairs Committee before any action is taken by the Board of Directors. The vote was 4 yeses, 3 noes, and 1 abstention. So it carried as a recommendation to the board to pull this item off of today's agenda.
It's good.
Carol?
Let me reiterate the reason for this item on the agenda. Sorry, I'm not close enough. Is that better? Yeah, thanks. The reason for this is basically our CEO said that we had not given him clear direction so that we can move quickly to decisions for things like glass arts. We've got ceramics on the table. We've got the security thing on the table. And this motion is an attempt to put a stake in the ground. It's not an attempt to change our CPM or do any long-term analysis of what should be done. I do believe that should be in the committee's hands.
what I'm trying to do, because I hate having our members waiting around or think they have promises of things that they don't. I'm looking for a way for us as a board to say, hey, this is how we want to operate interim until we have clearly stated policies. And our CEO is right. Somehow this process that we used to go through got lost in the CPM. And I think it was when we looked at policy governance and we stopped doing any changes to the CPM, but it's all gone. And he's absolutely right. It's simply an attempt to give some stake in the ground, give some direction until our committees can do the proper work, which normally takes quite a long time.
Okay, Scott has a comment.
I just had a quick comment. I just wanted to clarify, and thank you for saying that, Director Crothers. I do believe that I have followed board direction, the previous 3 boards, including this one on these projects, following policy within the CPM. My understanding is that some on the board didn't like that direction. And so there's interest in the board in going in a different direction. So my request has been be very clear with whatever that direction is going forward. If, for example, the board wants to follow a different policy, then we need to be very clear on what that policy is. But to date, and just for the record, I absolutely feel that I have followed board policy direction and the corporate policy manual. Thank you.
Steph,
Uh,
now
yes,
reiterate
yeah.
what I said a few minutes ago. No one person should be deciding even a temporary policy change, whether it's in the CPM or not. This needs to be decided on by the proper committees, including fiscal affairs and board affairs, and reviewed by our attorney if necessary. Before it comes to the board, we should not be having this discussion. Ted?
Scott, you're exactly right. The last 3 boards have done it. That's the way it's been going on. To me, and with no disrespect to any board members, because I appreciate them all in their stands, this takes on the appearance of trying to stop a particular project that's been in the works for well over 3 years that I know of. And it may have something to do with some of the projects they want in the future. I don't know. But I just think that we're trying to make this change, and the projects that it might affect, I think most times when you have rule changes or you change the way you're doing things, Scott has been following the policy that we've had in place. No one's objected until now. Normally, if something's in the middle of the process, you allow it to go through, and then you change after that. I've just gone through this with our HOA and some of the rules they have on architecture. So I just think putting off this and discussing this and giving people a chance to have it go through the committees, having staff take a look at it and bringing it up, as it says, adopt a FAC recommendations for procurement policy. So that's a procurement policy. It's coming up in a couple of weeks. I think that we should just go ahead and take this from this agenda and have it discussed at that time where it's listed.
Thank you, Ted. Steve?
Yeah, since the FAC discussed this specifically yesterday, and I was at the meeting, as Kathy said earlier, I don't understand why why the chair of the committee wants to leave this on the agenda for the board, considering that her committee voted not to do that just yesterday. So I agree with Ted, I guess, ultimately on this. Thank you.
Is there any other, Carol? Yeah, as the chair of fiscal affairs, one of the things that was discussed, and it's very valid, that what my motion brings up is more, it's 3-part motion. It's more than fiscal affairs. It's how the board operates and where we put certain responsibilities. When it comes to a decision process, where do we look for due diligence? Who is responsible for deciding what's fair compared to other projects that are on the table? Who looks at how do we stack up against our competition, other retirement organizations? And it's those kind of things that have led to, I'm afraid, a misunderstanding. And I take responsibility for that because kind of the old way we've done things is not written down. So there's no wonder that Scott couldn't find it or follow it. So I'm looking for a way that we can agree as a board. And we had hoped, I think Laurel had hoped that we'd have a discussion of this in the work session so we can talk things over, and then in the board meeting, we can make a vote. But this is not, I mean, this certainly individual committees have different roles in this, but we as a board are responsible for the overall direction, policy. And I think in particular, what I'm worried about is how do we give our CEO proper direction?
Scott had a comment.
Yeah, there's been a lot of discussion, especially CPM3 on committees. That'll be discussed again today, but there has been previous discussion, especially when you were having your board retreat, about having a holistic discussion about committees, roles and responsibilities, purposes, really who does what, who's responsible for which lane. Now, we have kicked the can down the road because we've had other things going on. You've had other things going on. But in the work plan that we've proposed for 23 is exactly that, a holistic look at committees, because this is what we heard from the board. So this is on the work plan that we're hoping will be adopted at some point this next year. And it takes a complete holistic look at something like that. We're hoping to be able to use a facilitator, probably Jenny Carrillo at Alexander Carrillo, that helped the board through its retreat, and in fact, drafted the board credo that's on your agenda today. So I think there's a lot of interest in this particular topic. My sense is it makes more sense to do it more holistically and not so ad hoc, which is kind of what this feels.
Thank you, Carol. Yeah, and we have some very important things to cover today, and we've wasted 22 minutes.
I don't think it's a waste, but go
Well,
ahead.
I'm willing to postpone this if I can say just a few things. And one is, we have worked through FAC. We are very close to having a procurement policy, which is an important ingredient of this overall scheme of how we make a decision. So I just want the board to know that I feel like we've made significant progress, and we should have a procurement policy for our next regularly scheduled board meeting. And that way we'll be able to go through all the committees, FAC, BAC, and follow all the CPM. So it can go directly into the CPM. So we are working very hard on that. So it's definitely a step in the right direction. And it is a hard decision on how, I mean, it's hard to decide how to make appropriate decisions, and it does take time. So I'm willing to back off today, particularly if we can be sure that we get to Bart's motion, and can we move that up in the agenda so we be sure we get there, because that's a critical piece in our decision on glass art. Barbara?
Okay, Barbara,
I'm not sure if it's the appropriate time to ask, but I was going to ask to amend our agenda and put F under F up to A. Move F up to A.
okay, just for the record, I'm objecting to that right at this particular moment, because we have had these items on the agenda for quite some time. E and F came in just this last week, so they were put on the agenda following the items that have already come in previously, and that's all I'm going to say about that. So, Beth, you had your hand up.
I think we need to remove F from the agenda. We are already preparing bids for the Glass Arts proposed space of approximately 4,500 square feet. We've sent out the RFPs. This project in this size, in this place, has been in the planning stages and the discussion phases and the review phases, and we've talked to all the experts for several years now. And to come now and say, let's put out new RFPs for only 2,500 square feet, after we've already talked with and consulted all of the experts, I think is, if it's determined at some later point in time that that's what we have to do, then that's okay, but I think at this time, it is not the time to ask for that. So I think it should be removed from the action items.
Okay, and you know what?
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on removing F, but let's do this one at a time if we can.
Is Carol's,
On-
did Carol remove it or not? I
Did
don't-
you remove it? I mean, we have a motion and a second, so, did you remove it? Okay, my apologies. Carol has removed item 8E to a later point.
And then originally Ted said he wanted item D removed.
Which Laurel removed.
Okay, so is that definitely withdrawn then?
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
So now I have a motion by Bev and a second by Ted to remove item F. Is that correct, Bev? Okay, yes, just discussion on that. Clark? Go ahead, Mike.
This is my motion. It would be emotionally devastating to me if it didn't come up. Given the content of Scott's link on the e-blast from February 10th, I felt it was my moral duty to make this motion. There has been no board involvement whatsoever and no input from the committee that I chair, which is P&E, as to the practical size or scope of the Glass Arts remodel. Everybody on this board wants Glass Arts to get a significantly bigger space at a substantial but reasonable cost. As Scott has noted repeatedly, in May of 2022, it was clear that the board consensus was that this project should cost somewhere in the neighborhood of $500,000. $900,000 is not in that neighborhood in my estimation. Therefore, I prepared the motion that you see here. The 2,500 square feet bears the same relation to the 4,500 square feet that $500,000 bears to $900,000, which is how I came up with that figure of 2,500 square feet. 2,500 square feet is more than double the current space that Glass Arts has. And it is even significantly in excess of any other active adult community's Glass Arts space that I've been made aware of. So I'm not withdrawing the motion. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion by the board members on this particular item?
I have some.
Beth? Beth?
If this, motion gets voted down, at what point do we at what point are we actually going to, be able to move ahead with the Glass Arts, at what point are we actually going to have a vote on something in order to move ahead with
I'm
the
sorry,
Glass
Beth,
Arts?
can I ask a quick question? When you say this motion, do you mean Ted's motion?
No,
Do you
I
mean my
mean,
motion?
I'm sorry, excuse me, yes. I mean, Bart's motion, if we take it off the agenda now, okay? And then I'm just curious, do we have a time in the near future when we're really gonna deal with this whole issue of, whether we award the contract or whether we cut down the amount of space and money? I mean, when are we gonna vote on that so that we can move ahead, or they
Okay.
can move ahead?
Scott, you
It's
wanna-
on the special agenda.
I'm sorry, Ted, can you hold on just one second?
Sure.
Scott would like to respond to Beth's question.
Well, depending on the outcome of today's meeting, and the vote or the motion on Bart's motion, we are scheduled, you are scheduled to reconsider an award of contract for the Glass Artists Tenant Improvement Project as it was and as it currently is drawn. And that is approximately 4,200 square feet. We have an estimate, I'm sorry? 4,800?
That was reduced.
Thank you, Carol. I sure appreciate that. That is scheduled for the 8th for you all to consider or reconsider that contract award. On the 22nd of February, we issued those, that RFP for those proposals. That date was to close today. We've received some requests from contractors that requested that we extend that because they want to get their bids in. So we granted that and extended that to next Wednesday, which is the 1st. So the board is tentatively scheduled to meet for March 8th to consider that. Now, that's on the books. If Director Hillier's motion moves forward, we're going to have to ask some follow-up questions to the board. Does that mean that we cancel the RFP? Would be the.
Okay, Steve?
Yeah, I agree with Director Lawless's motion in that this should go, again, committee-wise to the FAC and the P&E committee before it's brought to the board. That's the proper procedure. Thank you.
Okay, Ted, you had your hand up a bit.
Yeah, but I think it's been said that basically, and it's interesting that we've known this amount of square footage for a while, and yet, one of the directors and chair of the committee has brought up a proposal that he hasn't even taken to his committee. This has been known for a while, and he could have called a special meeting of his committee if he thought he needed to have a different thing. It needs to go to the P&E committee, and but my personal preference at this time is that we proceed as has been set before. This item be removed from this agenda until such time as the actual committee suggests it be on the agenda, and that we go with the recommendations of our professionals on the staff who've done a tremendous job, and Scott has really been working hard to provide the right answers. I have several, and I don't really want to put it right now because we're just talking about it being on the agenda, but I have several of the emails from people with Glass Arts who have gone out and done research and have worked on this. And you can say, yeah, they're prejudiced. Well, maybe so, but some of the things I happen to know are true from my own research. So I just leave it there.
Hang on. Are you finished, Ted? I didn't want to.
Yeah, I said I released the floor.
Okay.
Yes, I'm finished.
Scott has a comment.
Yeah, I just had a quick comment. It's very easy to go back into the records, and I want to encourage people to do that.
Yes.
But May 18th board work session, the minutes are pretty clear. And I did say this last week, but the minutes reflect at that meeting that I presented the following on club movements. One of those was with the computer club moving, it has freed up the 4,200 square feet possible for the Glass Arts Club moving into that space. Now, that was just a ballpark number. The next bullet says clubs would need to meet individually and collectively with the space designer to lay out the plans. So that was stated at that meeting on the 18th. The minutes also reflect that the board thoughts at that time were Glass Arts could go into the basement at Canoa Hills Clubhouse with a cost estimate of $1.6 million versus the renovation at SRS for $500,000. But remember, the word estimate was used. These were estimates. We didn't have any architects looking at these at this point. That's why we moved forward with the space designer. That's why we mentioned it at the May 18th meeting. And the board, as far as I'm concerned, at that point could have given direction to do something absolutely different, but chose not to. Always the board's prerogative to go in a different direction. And that's really what's happening today. But the record is clear, May 18th, 2022. Please have a look at it.
Bev, you had your hand up?
Again, we have an RFP out. We have contractors looking at it. We've already had an architect who is an expert in designing spaces. And they've been looking at 4,500 square feet. I think we need to finish with that. If in the end we decide that's doesn't work for us, it's way too much money, it's way too much space, then we can look at 2,500. But to preemptively cut that off before that is finished, which we will have answers to in a couple of weeks, it's a waste of everybody's time. And I'm so frustrated by the fact that, like Scott said, we knew how much space this was last year. It was apparently okay for IT to have the space, which they weren't even using for years. And now all of a sudden it's too much space for Glass Arts. And that just doesn't make any sense to me. I think we need to finish the process that we have started. Then we can determine if we really, really have to cut it down for whatever reason.
Thank you. Carol, did you have something you wanted to say too? You had your hand up, or you wanted to say something when Ted was speaking?
I just want to call a vote.
Oh, okay. Well, I understand that. So, but I want to make sure everybody is heard as well. So, is there any other discussion? We have a motion and a second to delete item 8F from the agenda. Is there any other discussion among the board members? Is there any discussion from the members in the audience? Okay, we'll take a vote. All those in favor of removing item 8F, as in Frank, from the agenda, please raise your hand. 5, 6. So we have 6 voting yes, and all those that are not in favor of removing it from the agenda, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we have a vote of 6 to 6. So it is a fail, and it will remain on the agenda for today. So let's move on. Is there anything else that, any other amendment that a board member wanted to make to the agenda? Steve?
Yeah, I would like to remove the B1 and 2 from the consent agenda and discuss separately.
Okay, and I don't believe we need to have a vote on that. I believe it's just a board member requesting. So we can take items B, 1 and 2, and we can discuss those first before we get to the action items, but off of the consent agenda. Okay.
I have one more. I have one more motion.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Ted.
You may have noticed when I was talking, I mentioned about the fact that we have our members volunteering on committees, and yet I have not heard a committee report for at least 3 board meetings. And I would really like to get to those committee reports. I think we're disrespecting our committee members for all the hard work they put in, and then not to have the reports heard at a meeting. So I would move that we move item 9 up ahead of item 8, our action items. I've been on a number of committees towards they actually do have their committee reports before they do their action items, and a lot of them call it different things, but basically the action items. So my motion is to move the committee reports to where we hear them today before we get to the action items. Item 8. And replace 8 replaces 9.
Okay, so we have a motion to take item 9, A through F, and put it on the agenda right as a first item in the action items to hear those reports. Do I have a second? Second. We have a second. So all of those.
Call for a vote.
I'm sorry. Okay. We call for a vote.
So all of those in favor of moving the committee reports, excuse me, to be the first item under action items, please raise your hand. And 4, so there are 4 members that say yes. And all those that vote no. There's 7. Is there a abstention? Donna, I'm sorry, I didn't see what you wanted to vote.
I raised my hand, but my video was off. Sorry.
I'm sorry, which, a yes or a no, or an abstention?
No, I raised my hand, yes.
Okay, so that makes it 5 to move it forward and 7 to not move it forward. So we will leave the committee reports as they are on the agenda. So, President's report, let's make this real quick.
Finally.
Oh, I'm sorry, she's right. We need to have a motion to approve the agenda as amended. Jim moved and Laurel, did you? Barbara. Okay, so as amended, so let's take a vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, and so I've got 10. Have you got 10? Okay, so we have 10 yeses, and I need a vote from Ted and Donna. All those people that want to vote no or oppose the agenda as amended. 1. And all those that abstain? And Donna's abstaining. Okay. So we have 5 yes, 7 no, 6 no, and 1 abstain. Okay. So
10, 1, 1.
I'm sorry. I was looking at the wrong thing. So we have 10, 1, and 1. Okay, so now we have adopted the agenda and we can move on to the president's report. And actually, I'm going to keep this really short because I'm just going to thank everybody for showing up and thank you for your patience of continually coming back and joining us at our board meetings and participating with us. And I'm going to leave it at that, but thank you very much to everybody that has come out today in this wonderful weather that we're having. So let's move on to Scott's report, CEO report.
Thank you. I do have a few items. I'll try to be quick. The Desert Hills Fitness Center, the mechanical, the electrical, and the plumbing rough-ins have begun. They'll be completed the first week of March. Storefront windows and doors are being installed. The fire alarm rough-in is scheduled for March 2nd and the 7th. The stucco work will begin actually in 2 days and conclude the first week of March. The estimated completion of construction is the end of April, and we are anticipating that we'll be able to open the fitness center this spring. Maybe May, maybe June. Future glass art space at Santa Rita Springs. We know that's the topic on the agenda today. Regardless, we're still moving forward until we're told otherwise, but revisions to the final designs have been submitted to Pima County for contractors. Requests for proposals were sent to 3 commercial contractors on the 3rd. The original submittal due date, as I already said, was on the 22nd. We've extended that to the 1st. The board will have an opportunity on the 8th to consider awarding a contract for that project. The expansion of ceramics at Desert Hills, this was on the agenda for consideration on the 25th of January. The board will be asked on the 8th of March at their special meeting how the board would like to proceed concerning the expansion of that dedicated club space. In other words, Does the board wish to direct staff to have an architect move forward with developing designs and construction documents? Essentially, that's what you'll be asked on the 8th. Otherwise, we're not moving forward with architectural designs at this point. The architectural drawings at the Del Sol Clubhouse are moving forward. The board did give direction on that. Construction of the upper floor restrooms is underway. The great news is the billiards playroom is opened. It opened today. There are 3 tables up there, 3 billiards tables. There's lighting. There's temporary porta potties outside. So it's a little cold, but I would still encourage you to go over there and have a look. Once those restrooms on the upper level are completed, we will open those and then have a normal place to use the restroom. Architectural space and cost estimates for a potential West Center Art Center. Programming designs have been developed and received by the architect. They're under review. Alternative plans are being considered for expanding West Center Lapidary as an alternative to building a brand new building. Again, we will be asking for direction from the board on how the board would like to move forward on the 8th of March. The upper deck at Santa Rita Springs will have repairs and recoating performed beginning May 8th. The awning structure at East Center Lapidary materials are on order. Installation will be scheduled with the vendor once all materials are received. The project was part of the fiscal year 23 club funding request. HVAC replacements are planned at East Center, West Center, Canoa Ranch, Canoa Hills, and those will take place through mid-April through October. Big project that we've been waiting on for a while. It's out of MRR, but the Canoa Hills locker room and restrooms will be going under a full remodel beginning in April. So for those of you that use Canoa Hills, please be aware. Canoa Hills, Desert Hills, Las Campanas, and Canoa Ranch pool decks will be repaired and have resurfacing conducted beginning in May. And so if you use those pools, please be aware that that will be happening. And I'm happy to take any questions. Yes.
I know the billiards players were a little upset they got moved out a little early out of Desert Hills. Didn't they have 6 tables there and something like that, 5 or 6? And how many tables do they have now, or what accommodations has GVR made to?
Sure. They had 5 tables, one of which was a snooker table. So we took a billiards table and a snooker table and put it in the art room temporarily at East Center. And if you recall, there are 2 tables already at East Center. So there's 4 now at East Center. Then we took the remaining 3 tables from Desert Hills billiards area and put those in the upper level of the clubhouse. So they're not down any tables at this point.
Sorry, Beth, does anybody actually play snooker?
Yes, it's the only snooker table on campus, and we received a lot of concerns that the snooker table was going to be out of commission. So it is not out of commission, it is available.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, at this point, we're going to take member comments on any items that are not on the agenda for today. And if anybody would like to get up and speak, if you could just give us your name and your GVR number. Okay, it doesn't appear that we have anybody, so we'll move on to the presentations. The Member Assistance Program map presentation. David Webster is going to give us a short presentation on that. David?
Yes. Ted can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you all right.
All right. So I will give a short presentation on the MAP program for the year 2023. For the year 2023, we had 100 applicants for MAP, and 93 received full awards, 5 received partial awards. So only 2 were denied, and they were usually for sort of technical reasons. So as far as the equivalent amount of dues paid, we had 95 members who had their equivalent of members had their dues paid. And if you compare that to the prior year, you can see that's a pretty big jump from 72. And the best way to look at it, at least for me, is on a graph. And this graph shows a 7-year trend for MAP dues paid. And you can see from the year 2022 to the year 2023, it went from 36,000 to 48,000. That is a 33% increase. And it's a much larger increase than we've seen in any of the previous years. So I would say that the MAP program was a success this year to see that kind of an increase. And a total of $48,324 worth of members' dues were paid by the MAP program. And I did a little more digging, and like I said, that was an increase of 33% for the year 2023. Also, we looked up the number of individuals. I'm certainly not going to mention names or anything, but there were 559 individuals that contributed to MAP. And that is 4.1% of our membership actually contributed some amount to MAP. That's contributed through GVR. That does not include what the foundation maybe raised or received, but that's the numbers on the map. Okay, pretty quick and easy. And then I'll go ahead to the next agenda item if that's okay.
Sure, but if I might just make a comment, David, before you move on. I'm just so happy that we are able to help our members, and thank you to everyone who contributed to this program. And a special thanks should go to the GVR Foundation as well for all of their hard work to get assistance from our members to help those that need help. So with that, I'm sorry. Go on, Steve.
David, I just had a couple of questions. One is the big increase from, what was that? Could you put your graph back up there? I'm sorry. You attribute that increase to more members needing assistance, or do you attribute that to more awareness among the membership that MAP exists?
Well, I did see a 26% increase in the number of applicants. So you can infer what you will from that. If you got more people applying, I think there's more and I will just comment that from what I saw, it looked like there was a bit more awareness. So that's all I can speak to that. I think there was more awareness and there were significantly more applications.
On the number of people that contributed, the year number of 559, did that include members that contributed through GVR clubs or not?
That does not include, that's a good question. That does not include the amounts that were contributed through clubs. That's a good question. I didn't incorporate that.
So that was just a direct contribution to GVR, like when people were paying their dues.
Exactly.
So 559 people
Mhm.
contributed while they were paying their dues towards it. So that did not include what the foundation raised.
That's right, nor the
Awesome.
clubs.
That's awesome.
Okay.
Are there any other questions, Bart?
Yeah, thanks, David. Now, the MAP contributions, am I correct in assuming that they do not carry over from year to year? In other words, this figure that we see for 2023 of $48,000 roughly, that's the amount that was collected in donations.
No, that's the amount that was awarded. I may not have been clear. It was amount awarded to members to pay their dues.
So are any MAP funds carried over from year to year?
Yes.
How much is being carried over from?
I can't speak to the foundation, but I know in GVR, it's right around $10,000 that we carry over.
And were all of the awards for the entirety of the dues, or were there any partial awards?
There were some partial awards.
And
5 of them were partial.
5 partials and the rest were the whole dues.
Correct.
Thank you.
Good questions. Thank you all.
Anybody else have a question? Okay, David, if you want to move into the quarterly financial presentation.
Okay, what we have on the screen is what matches your book is the fourth quarter, the final quarter of the year. And I will give a high level, overview that our income, our revenue was 0.6% more than budgeted. And we'll talk about that here in just a minute, what made that up. So we came pretty much right on budget with our revenue. Now, if you go down to the expense section, you'll see that it was 6.9% under budget for all of our expenses. And those factors led to what I estimate, and you'll see that it says preliminary draft, because we are in the midst of an audit process, that I estimate a surplus as calculated by the formula in the CPM of about $410,000. So that's a high level overview. And I'll speak to the revenue side. If you take the members' dues, which make up 59% of our budget, and our capital revenue, which is 26% of our budget, those two bars, the first one and the third one, make up 75% of our budget. Now you can see that they came in right on budget. That dark line is the 100% of budget line. So they came up right on budget, which accounts for, 75% of your budget comes right on budget. That's how we got to a 0.6% variance, favorable variance in revenue. This section, which is the third largest component, which is our fees, that includes things like tenant fees. And we actually came in over budget on that item. And the other items are fairly small portion of our budget, but I will note that the recreation outlier here, that's only about half of our recreation revenue came in. That is offset to some degree by a reduction in expenses that relate to those activities, like where am I drawing a blank? Things like instructors or movies or concerts. So that big underage in budget is offset with expense side, which I'll show you in just a minute. Now on the expense side, you can see the top two items are facilities at 18% and personnel at 49% of budget. What's that? 67% of our budget are in these first two line items. And when both of those came in under budget for the year, that's what drove our surplus for the year, to be kind of simplistic about it, was that our salaries came in under budget and that our facilities expenses came in under budget. And then you see here in the program, that's the expense side of that revenue that I was talking about a moment ago, that number came in under budget as well. And that's in a very summarized manner, that's what drove the 410,000 surplus that I estimate for 2022. Now, on the statement of financial position, there's just one item in here I think it's interesting, and I thought I would bring up. You see this line item, designated investments, on the assets portion of our statement. You will see that it declined $1.8 million. Coincidentally, or not coincidentally, related is the fact that we had unrealized losses on our investments in our designated investments. And by designated, I mean the initiatives, the MRR, the MRRB, and the emergency funds. We do reflect those unrealized losses in this $10,642,000. Kind of soothe that thought. Our first month of 2023, we had a positive earnings on our investments already of, I think it was $380,000. So we're off to a good start in 2023. Okay. In this, when I talk about the big unrealized losses that we had in our designated investments, it's good that we have this 12-month period where we compare to our benchmarks, where the MRR, which is the largest component of our designated funds, showed an 11% loss compared to a benchmark that's 10.2. A lot of that had to do with we were keeping some money in cash, but if you look down through all, I won't go through each line item. But if you go through all these, you'll see that we are within range of our investment statement policy, and that our investments are, while they did show a loss last year, they were not extraordinary or unusual. And then finally, I did want to put up this chart that's in your book that shows how our initiatives fund is projected. These are projected numbers for 2023 and beyond. You know, I kept mentioning the $410,000 surplus. Well, that would go into the initiatives fund if the board so approves. So that's a positive number to that initiatives fund. We still going to have continued funding through our capital funds. We estimated $643,000 in 2023. And then the rest of these items are, I'm not going to go through each line item, but you can see that we have some very large, significant capital projects, like with the Del Sol Clubhouse, and the Glass Arts project that we're talking about. And then we get down here to the Desert Hills Fitness expansion that's been contracted. But like I say, these are projections, but of course, like with Desert Hills, we have a contract, so that number should be very solid. But we have a couple of items down here, like the expansion of ceramics, where we have an additional $300,000 to be spent in 23. To my knowledge, that's not technically been approved, but I put it in this projection because it's something that we want. It's something in the hopper that we want to do. So I wanted to see how that affects the bottom line and if we have room to do these projects. Another one is this unbudgeted security system for $167,000. But we do show that we are solvent. We have a positive cash balance of $229 by the end of the year projected. And equally as important is you see that in the future years, that this kind of releases some of the pent up capital demand that we've had. And so that I'm projecting that in the short term years to come, that this fund would be able to rebuild its balance. And then there's another summary of our MRR Part B, pools and spas, and our emergency funds, all which show some good, significant positive balances. Okay.
You're welcome.
Thank you, David. Steve?
David, on the MR&R, where are we now in comparison, as of the end of the year anyway, to the recommendation from that consulting company, I can't remember the name of it, that had a percentage in our comparable entities like GVR, what we should have in terms of percentage of the value of our assets, and, or I'm sorry, the MR&R should represent a certain percentage of the assets. Do you know where we're at there?
I'm drawing a blank on that. Scott, do you remember? I don't remember, but
I thought we were at about 75%.
I was going to say 76. So I was going to guess, that was my guess. It is 76.
That's where we are.
Number two, it's like, it's under 80, but it's according to the consultants, it's very, very good.
You know, there's more components than just the percentage funded, which is what we're talking about here. And you really don't even want to be at 100%. It's too high. But our consultant, which is Browning Reserve, tells us that we have a strong reserve fund for maintenance, repair, and replacement.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions from board members? Any questions from the audience? Okay, so thank you very much, David. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Our next item is the member survey results presentation. Natalie Whitman is going to give us that presentation. Natalie, go ahead.
In July of 22, GVR engaged Zellos LLC to conduct a comprehensive survey of the membership, the last of which was conducted late in 2017. Our previous comprehensive surveys had been conducted by NRC, the National Research Center, but since that time, they've merged with Polco, and they have a new business model that didn't suit GVR's needs or pocketbook. However, Zellos had three things recommending them for this project. Having recently facilitated GVR's 5-year strategic plan, they had established a great working relationship with staff and had learned a lot about GVR's unique features and our membership. They had drafted the membership or the measurements for that strategic plan and for the goals. And so they were in a great position to craft this survey to establish baselines against which we can assess our progress. And finally, they charged 40% less than NRC Polco, since Polco is now only offering marketing packages that GVR wasn't seeking. Throughout the survey development and launch, staff worked with Zellos CEO and lead researcher Stacia Aylward. But today we will hear the results from Terry Glass, who some of you recognize. She was the primary Zellos consultant assigned to work with GVR when we developed the strategic plan. Take it away, Terry.
All right. Well, thank you so much. It's good to see you again. Some of you up close. Ted and Donna, I can see you real close and you must be at home. And all the rest of you, of course, look like ants around that table. I don't see you quite as closely, but I'm really happy to be back with you and happy to get the opportunity to present to you the results of your survey. Hopefully you have looked over it. We're not going to go through every single slide that you had, but we're going to go over the highlights and hopefully just remind you, as well as those who might be joining you there in the audience, your members, about what we have discovered from the input. So once again, well, wait a second. Be good if I shared the screen. All right. So once again, thank you for working with Zellos to design, administer, and analyze your 2022 membership survey. It's always a pleasure to work with GVR and to catch up with what's been going on since we did the strategic plan in 2021. So I'm going to walk you through the highlights of the summary report today, especially highlighting this year's results and making comparisons to prior GVR surveys when I can do that. We made the survey available to any member who wanted to take it, but we also randomly selected a sample of members to take the survey, and we analyzed the sample group's responses separately. We randomly selected 5,000 of your 22,000 members for the sample group. We received 887 valid responses from the sample group, which gives us about an 18% response rate. This response rate from the sample group allows us to know that the sample accurately reflects the attitudes of the full population at a 95% confidence level, with just a 3% margin of error. In other words, GVR can rely on the accuracy of these results for its understanding and decision-making. The number of those, just for your information, the number of those outside of the survey, the chosen ones who responded, were 1,268. And there was no difference in their responses compared to the selected group, except that they were more positive in some areas. So here's the first data slide. I'd like to orient you to what we're seeing so that you can kind of be with me as we move along. On the top right circle, on the top right of the slide, you'll see a circle, and you'll see that that information that's on this slide connects to this part of the strategic plan. So the slide you're looking at connects to mission and vision. In this case, right, overall satisfaction. And so that's why we're connecting it to mission and vision. You will then see the survey question, followed by the graph of the results. In the orange boxes above the graphs, we're providing summary information. So we ask members, overall, how satisfied are you with the services and programs offered at GVR? 75% of them are satisfied. You see that in the orange box up there. In fact, 39% of them are extremely satisfied. And you can see that right in the bars that are in the graphic underneath. On all of the graphics, when you see a green bar, that's the most frequent selection. And the black bar always indicates the I don't know response. Okay. So let's look at our quality of life questions. 73% of people agree that GVR recreational opportunities enhance their quality of life. 58% agree that the social opportunities enhance their quality of life. And 54% agree that the leisure education opportunities enhance their quality of life. You'll see the percentage who responded that they don't know is increasing as the agreement decreases. On this slide, in the gray boxes, the analysis is showing you how these results compare to the same question in the 2021 strategic plan survey. Okay, in all cases, in all three of these, recreational opportunities, social opportunities, and leisure education opportunities, a higher percentage of members agree that GVR's recreational, social, and leisure education opportunities enhance their quality of life as compared to 2021. We developed 2 questions for this survey as our outcome measures for goal 4 in your strategic plan, which is to cultivate and maintain a sound financial base that generates good value for our members. The results of this question help us know if members feel we are generating good value. You can see on the right that 11% rate it as very poor or poor, while 24% rated as average, 39% rated as good, and 25% rated as excellent. Now, we did check, and there are no statistically significant differences in the age groups or the length of membership for this question. The question on the left will help GVR with the design of initiatives and actions. For most members, cost and quality are equally significant factors in value for money. So it will be important for GVR to keep those things balanced. If GVR does want to emphasize one over the other, cost or quality, it should lean toward quality over cost based on this input. We ask members to choose or to write in one word that most closely describes the character, quality, or atmosphere at GVR. The most selected word was friendly. Now, considering that your vision statement is to be a friendly, vibrant community, that's like really good news. The next 3 most chosen words were neighborly, welcoming, and relaxed. Then you can see that 9% of the people wrote in other terms. They're in the orange box on the right, listed by number of people who wrote in the same word, and then listed alphabetically unedited. We asked members to rate how effective GVR is at doing 11 specific items that are part of the GVR mission. They rated each item on a scale of 1 to 5, where 1 is not effective, 2 is somewhat effective, 3 is effective, 4 is very effective, and 5 was extremely effective. What we're reporting is the response mean here, and they're sorted from highest to lowest. As you can see, these effectiveness rates are very high, all higher than effective. So we can compare these results to the same question in the 2021 survey, which is here. In the same order, from highest ratings to lowest ratings for this survey, you can see that in every case, the ratings improve on all statements between 2021 and this survey. 58% of your members agree that communication and information from the GVR staff is trustworthy. 34% agree that communication and information from the GVR board is trustworthy. The most often selected option here, answer here, is neither agree nor disagree. Okay, and there's also an additional 19% that said they don't know. In the top right, you'll see that we've connected this and the next slide to goal number 5 in your strategic plan, which is governance, to provide sound, effective governance and leadership for the corporation. So to dig deeper onto goal 5, we asked members to rate their confidence in the GVR board's ability to advance the best interests of GVR and the general membership, make important decisions in a timely manner, plan ahead by identifying changing senior recreation trends and anticipating challenges, and work collaboratively in a professional and productive manner. Those are all components of goal 5 in your strategic plan, things that you said you would work to do. The most common response from the members is somewhat confident. And more members are indicating that they are not confident at all than are saying that they are extremely confident. Okay. All right, so now we move away and we look at from the board, and we look at ratings for services and programs. We've got 2 slides for all of your services and programs. All of the clubs are listed on the next slide. But as you can see here, members' experience with all of your services and programs is very positive, with the average responses over 4, a 4.0. So on a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being excellent, everything is rated at greater than 4. This was also true in the 2021 strategic planning survey. All of the GVR clubs are also rated very highly. "84% of your members have participated in any activity at GVR in the past 3 years. That result was the same as it was in 2021. In the box on the right, we note that the members who have been with GVR 1 to 5 years are more likely to have participated than any other group. So your newest members are the most engaged. A smaller share, 72% of the newest members have, and 78% of the longest term members, more than 20 years, have. Okay. There's no statistically significant difference in participation when we look at age groups. So what's significant is the number of years that they have been members. That affects participation more than anything else does. Here we see the breakdown for length of membership and for age groups. The age group with the highest participation rate is the age group 55 to 59. Here we show the percentage of people who selected that they have never participated in each of these particular activities. Okay, so the Southern Arizona Senior Games has got the least participation. And the most participation, as you might guess, is the fitness center. Okay. We also asked members to rank these 7 strategic planning initiatives in priority order for them. The most important priority is 1, the least important is 7. And so what we're showing you here is the most important strategic planning initiative for GVR is to pursue greater operational efficiency to ensure that members receive high dollar for their value. High value for their dollar. We also asked members what they would like to see more of. So here's what their responses were to what activities they'd like to see more of. More members would like to see more of all of these items, but leisure education opportunities is at the top of the list. 70% of the sample group say that they are likely or extremely likely to vote in the upcoming GVR board election. 15% were neutral and 14% said they're unlikely or extremely unlikely to vote. 69% of your respondents live in Green Valley all year round. That's down from 75% in the 2021 strategic planning project. On the right, you can see how the membership is distributed by length of time. So the largest percentage of people who live in Green Valley year round are those that are have been here 1 to 5 years. When we ask what was the primary reason they chose to buy GVR property, the 4 primary reasons at the top of the survey are the exact same ones they were in the 2021 survey. Green Valley Recreation, it's a retirement community, it's well known as an active lifestyle community, and it's affordable. We only found 4 questions with differences. The self-selecting respondents were more likely to have participated in any activity. They were more likely to vote, and they were more likely to know about MAP. They also tended to rate the value for money of GVR higher. Otherwise, their responses, the self-selecting respondents, their responses for every other question are consistent with the sample group. All right. So again, I think you've got the full deck and all of the slides there, but I'd be happy to respond to anything that you'd like me to respond to, or to be here while you have some discussion if you wish.
Steve? Thank you.
I'm a little confused about the selected group and the non-selected group. One was 800 something, one was 1200. What are the differences between those groups out of the 5,000? And they are both unique out of the 5,000, right? Those 2 are like 2,000, and then the rest you didn't select for some reason. Or how does that work? And I'm very happy if this is reflective in your line of work, in your science, to be absolutely accurate. That means a lot to me as a board member and as a member of GVR. So I just want to understand a little bit more so I can feel real confident that these numbers are really reflective.
Yeah, you can have a very high level of confidence about it. So let me say again how we did it. You have 22,000 members. We randomly selected, because that's always the way you should do this kind of thing. We randomly selected 5,000. Okay, that was just based on the statistics, that was a good number. We received 887 valid responses out of that 5,000. That is a response rate of 18%, which is very good, right? So that mathematically extrapolated gives us a 95% confidence level in the responses. They can be generalized to your full membership. Okay, so that was 887 people out of the 5,000 randomly selected. There were an additional 1,268 people who were not selected in the sample. They were not part of the sample group, but they wanted to respond. And we made the survey available to anyone who wanted to respond. And interestingly, their responses totally line up with the sample group, with the exception of those 4 things that I told you at the end. And all of them were actually more positive, right? So they, where am I at here? Right? They were more likely to have participated. They thought they were more likely to vote. They were more likely to know about MAP, and they rated GVR value for the money higher. Those were
But
the
you didn't
only things that were different from the sample group.
But the self-selected group are not counted in these numbers you're showing us in the charts. The self-selecting people are.
That's
in there.
right. That's right.
Yeah.
The other graphs you were seeing was the randomly selected sample size. But we did look at the self-selected group to see, well, gee, how do their responses compare to the random sample? And they lined up exactly the same, except for those four things. You know, sometimes when, in fact, I recall having this conversation with the board when we did the strategic plan. Sometimes you assume that the people who would self-select to respond would be the people who had an axe to grind, you know, people who were unhappy. But it turns out that that was actually not the case for you.
Do we have any other questions from board members?
It sounds like in general, the members of GVR are a happy group of people. And the one thing they'd like to see is a little bit more understanding or appreciation for the board and the work that it does, or that the board needs to really work on not being so hostile one to another. Is that a fair assessment, Terry?
Well, I didn't see a hostile one to another.
No, they didn't have
that.
that.
But what I did see is that there were and I guess this would be true, but you can decide whether or not you would care about it. But there were a sizable number of people who didn't know.
Yeah.
You know, how to rate the board. Now, you know, in some ways that would, I mean, to my way of thinking, that makes some sense. I mean, your job is not to be like the star of the show.
Right.
You're enabling the organization to do its thing. You're providing direction and oversight and those kinds of things. So if, you know, a bunch of your membership, well, gee, I don't know. I mean, everything seems okay, but I don't really know. That's probably okay. In my view.
Terry, I guess the thing I'm getting to is I don't see this as necessarily too different from what other recreational organizations have. A lot of times they're very pleased with the final product, but they're not necessarily as pleased with how you got to that final product. And I don't know if your evaluation of other organizations sees some of the same trends.
Yeah, I don't know if I could say that in a general way, but you know, there was not an unreasonable, I mean, I didn't think that the responses here were particularly negative about the board. I mean, you guys would have to decide that. You know, in your strategic plan, you had as a goal kind of improving some things. And I think that given what I know from a couple of years ago when I worked with you and we worked on the strategic plan, I think that there seems to be progress.
Yeah, I agree.
Scott has a comment he'd like to make.
Yeah, hi, Terry. Thank you so much. It's
Hi,
nice to
Scott.
see you. I think these are great results, and I did want to point out, it is certainly very nice to see the results from 21 compared to 22. I think it's pretty safe to say that overall and in general, most members are very pleased with the direction that GVR is going, because across the board, we've seen increases in satisfaction in just about every category. So I'm, of course, very happy to hear that, and hopefully the rest of hopefully the board is too, because that's great news.
Yes.
Hey,
Terry,
Terry,
I have to agree with Scott. It was a really nice presentation, but I thought the survey was well received and well responded to, and I'm happy to see the results that came out of as a result of it. So thank you very much. Ted, did you just have your
Well,
hand up?
it just kind of popped up when Scott was saying the result of 21 and 22. Are the results of 21 really a reflection of, to some extent, of the individual experience up to that point? So it really may reflect some of the things that's happened in previous years. And so it's kind of delayed responses on the answers to the survey.
I don't think there's any way to know that.
I just was wondering if there's, with your experience with doing these type of surveys, have you seen any of that? So that's,
I mean, we generally think in term that people are usually responding at a point in time. Now, of course, if something, happened 2 weeks ago that I'm delighted about, that will skew me toward positives. And if there's something that happened 2 weeks ago that I was not happy about, that might skew me toward a couple of negative responses. I mean, we're all sort of affected by things that are most proximate to us. But generally, I think we think of surveys as being kind of point in time.
Again, Terry,
Thank you.
thank you very much for your presentation, and
Yes.
we'll look forward to our next survey.
All right. Well, likewise, we will too. And thank you again for engaging us in the work. And we continue to wish you well and are happy to do anything to support your efforts.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Terry.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll move on to the consent agenda. In the consent agenda, we have just the minutes, which would be A1 and A2. So do we have a motion to adopt those, or are
So
there any
moved. So moved.
Ted, thank you, and
Second,
Beth, thank you. Is there any discussion on the minutes or any correction? No, not the minutes. The financial statements were removed for discussion. So on the minutes, let's take a vote on that. All in favor of approving the minutes under the consent agenda, please raise your hand. That would be 11 and one person is missing. 12, here he comes. So that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay. Steve had requested the financial statements to be pulled. I'm assuming he has some questions on that. So Steve, do you want to start with that? Start with number 1, financial statement draft, December financial statement.
No, I just wanted David to just give us an overview of each of those statements, and then I may have questions. It depends on his presentation.
Oh, I see. So,
Well, I can do that pretty quickly. The presentation I gave was through the fourth quarter of 2022. So I think that takes care of the December financial statement. But in looking at the January financial statement, we're starting off the year 12% under in the total revenue category. And that's particularly being driven by home sales being under what we budgeted. We budgeted that there'd be 82 homes that we would collect fees on, and we ended up with only 70. So that's a 15% under budget item there that does affect our bottom line. On the expense side, we are 8% under budget for expenses. So while we're under budget in totality, we're not in the red. How does that, the bottom line I have right now for January is $45,000 positive. But just keep in mind that if we do need to show a surplus in order to fund our designated funds, such as initiatives or MRR, that type of thing. So that's really a high level you know, that, you know, 1 month doesn't make a trend. But for January, we're still behind on our capital revenue is probably the big topic that I would point out.
Beth?
Yeah, I just have two minor questions that I don't quite understand. For example, what is deferred dues, fees, and programs? And on the other page, I don't understand why advertising one point was 2,500 and the next is at 19,000. What do those actually mean in terms of things that were?
Okay, on the deferred revenue, she's referring to the statement of financial position, or you might call it a balance sheet. We receive our dues, mini dues in December, but we don't recognize that as revenue until the following year when that revenue is earned. It's the same way with programs. Someone wants to sign up for a class or a program, they may pay for it in December, but we don't recognize that income. We show the income in the subsequent year. So those amounts are going to be amortized. Dues is amortized evenly over 12 months. The programs, we recognize the revenue when the revenue is earned. I hope that was simple. Now, you said something about advertising. I'm sorry, I don't know.
Since 2021 year to date, is this because it's 1 month versus a year? Is that what we're looking at? It's a 2021 year to date, 2,500, 2022 year to date, 19,000.
That's exactly what it, you know, it's for the total year. And our advertising, our budget went up for 2022 from 19,000 to 33,000. And we spent 19,000 in 2022. So the budget did increase from 21 to 22, but we did not spend all the budget in 22 in advertising.
Beth, are you looking on page 48,
I'm on page 43.
43? And I'm on the wrong page. Oh, I'm on the right page. Oh, I see. Okay.
She's talking about the 2,500 in 2021 for advertising line item
Right.
as compared to the 19,285 for the 2022. And it is a pretty big increase.
Yeah.
And we budgeted for that, actually even more.
Does that answer your question then? Steve?
Yeah, David, the thing that concerned me late last year and now early this year is the capital revenue for this year compared to budget, because we need that obviously for a lot of different reasons here at GVR. And if this, I know it's only 1 month, but if this trend continues, we're going to come about $1.1 million short. And I don't think that's going to happen, but can you give me some feeling of your team and the CEO's confidence level on maintaining the budget for 2023 in capital revenue? Or if you think we're going to miss it, you have any clue on how much we might miss it by? And if that happens, what are we going to do?
Yeah, well, with the very limited insight that I have, I think that I think that we're going to meet our budget for 2023. I know we're off to a slow start, but I found that the demand for houses in this area, you know, was somewhat pandemic resistant. You know, the pandemic came along and the housing market did not fall apart. And I found that interest rates, they do affect, you know, the supply and demand of homes, but keep in mind, we get a fee every time that a home is sold, whether it's sold at a top price or a low price, it doesn't matter. We get a flat fee. So Steve, it's early. It's too early for me to predict. I think that when we did the budget, we We tried to be realistic and conservative. And, right now, I think we should, I have no reason to not believe that we should come in within reason of what we budgeted for 23.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from the board regarding the financials? Any questions from the audience? I'm sorry, Carol?
I move that the board accepts the financials.
I'm sorry,
Second.
Barbara, that's you? Barbara seconded. Carol moved that we accept them. And Barbara seconded. All in favor? Raise your hand, please. And it's unanimous. Thank you very much. So we'll move on to the next action item, which would be to adopt the compensation philosophy, and Scott's going to lead us in that.
Thank you, Madam President. I've pulled up the proposed compensation philosophy. The board first heard the draft compensation philosophy during its January 18th work session when Kelly Lemons from Lemons Consulting presented this along with the methodology for developing the compensation plan for GVR employees. At that meeting, there was concern that there wasn't language identifying that performance is a factor when determining compensation, and we heard that. So what we have done here in your packet, as well as what's on the screen, is an updated draft that staff and the consultants, Lemons, have developed. I'd like to read this to you, and then I will open it up for conversation. I did want to remind the board that adoption of this does not affect the 23 budget. We're not asking for a budget adjustment. We're not asking for any more dollars to implement the compensation plan. The question before the board is just, are you supportive of adopting this philosophy? The philosophy is really meant to be a guide, kind of I would say like just a beacon that we can work towards. It's not necessarily, it's a goal essentially. So essentially, it says GVR is committed to attracting and retaining the best available talent in service to GVR's strategic plan and the communities it serves. This compensation philosophy prioritizes 1, competitive wages, 2, equitable pay among employees performing similar work, and 3, consideration of performance as a determining factor. It is supported through the development of standardized application of a pay plan. The pay plan was designed to be market-driven and is based on a comprehensive analysis of GVR's relevant labor market. The pay plan establishes appropriate pay rates based on data and trends specifically related to the labor market, e.g. Employment Cost Index as reported by the U.S. Bureau of Labor and Statistics and independent compensation survey data. Implementation of the pay plan is intended to align GVR with relevant labor market and maintain parity with market changes. It does not include COLA increases, but will incorporate performance-based factors. I'm going to scroll down. The pay plan includes a pay scale with pay grades that are arranged to facilitate the assignment of market-aligned pay ranges for each position at GVR, assignment of appropriate pay grades for each job that is performed by wage market analysis of each position within its relevant labor market, GVR's ability to lag, meet, or lead the labor market from a financial perspective, and internal considerations such as relationship with job families and similarities between roles. Standardized calculation of pay rates for employees within their respective jobs, assigned pay grades based on appropriate compensation attributes such as relevant experience within the role and performance. diligent administration of pay practices and associated processes, routine review and calibration of the system and practices under the pay plan to include regular analysis of the labor market and consideration of GVR's business objectives, a balanced approach to a competitive compensation and sound financial stewardship. I'm going to scroll up a little bit more. This next piece was recommended by the Fiscal Affairs Committee on January 7th, but they wanted to be a little clear on whether or not GVR's goal would be to lag, meet, or lead the market. So this language was added based on the Fiscal Affairs recommendation. GVR's compensation philosophy includes a strategy to eventually meet the labor market by aligning its pay ranges to the 50 percentile of the respective market ranges, which may require more than one fiscal year to achieve. The pay plan will be overseen by the CEO in collaboration with the CFO and will be administered by the Human Resources Director. The compensation and pay plan will be reviewed annually and adjusted as needed to continuously balance competitive pay rates or pay within the organizational goals, as well as to respond to changes within the labor market. So that is what is being proposed. I've left it in a red line draft so that you can literally see the changes that have come forward from your January 18th work session. Again, there is no fiscal impact by adopting this philosophy. This is a philosophy. The pay plan itself is consistent with the budget that the board approved for the 23 budget. So again, I want to remind the board, this is not an additional cost to the 23 budget. I think there was some confusion about that. So with that, I am happy to answer any questions, or I'm going to attempt to answer questions. Maybe David could help. We have some.
Beth? I seem to remember when this was presented, that the issue of performance was not part of the plan as presented by the woman from whatever agency we had, the company we had work on this. And then she felt like maybe in a couple of years down the road that could be integrated into the system. But at the time, I know she specifically said that the pay would not be necessarily based on performance. And if somebody wasn't performing, they would just be asked to leave and someone else would be hired. I understand that many of us had issues with that and wanted performance in there, but I sort of agree with what she had said, that we should wait a couple of years and also to make performance part of a pay plan.
So if I could respond to that, 100% agreed. This exercise was to find equality and parity based on current labor rates. The exercise didn't take into consideration whether somebody is performing. It doesn't mean that the philosophy shouldn't include that in the future. And I think that's why we included that in the language. But in terms of where an employee was identified on a continuum, on a scale, on where they were placed, it was based on labor rates and it was based on the experience they brought to the table. What Kelly Lemon said at that discussion on the 18th, and I agreed with her, was we should absolutely be implementing a performance-based system. And we have started that. We just haven't really moved forward with it as robustly as we would like to. We do annual performance evaluations now, which is something that we hadn't done previously. So those evaluations really help to kind of set the standard and the expectations in terms of future goals. Were you able to meet your goals? Were you able to meet the expectations throughout your year as an employee? And as Kelly also said during that, if employees aren't meeting those expectations and we as an employer are keeping those employees, she said, then we still have a responsibility to pay them. And I tend to agree. But conversely, on the opposite side, it was if we're keeping them and they're not performing, shame on us.
Mhm.
So we should be finding ways to move those employees out of the organization. There's just no way about it. And that's through various performance expectations, being very clear about what those expectations are. That isn't really part of this discussion, but we wanted to make sure that the board understood, that I understood, and that we understood that performance is a factor in determining compensation going forward. But this exercise was about identifying where employees should be placed on a continuum now, based on labor rates and based on their experience that they brought to the table.
Art,
Overall, I don't have any objection to the philosophy with one exception, and that's the provision that's in the next to last paragraph. You'd have to scroll a bit. But the provision that makes reference to the 50th percentile. In other words, our goal being to pay employees at the 50th percentile. I'm not aware of any business that tells the world what its compensation policy is with this level of specificity. For businesses, that's considered a proprietary information. Businesses do sometimes publish a general pay scale, but businesses do not reveal what process or rationale underlies the numbers that are on the pay scale. As to the 50th percentile, it is unclear to me what is magical or even desirable about that figure. I'll note that half of all businesses pay their employees under the 50th percentile, and half of all businesses, by definition, pay over the 50th percentile. Historically, at least as I learned in undergraduate business school many moons ago, businesses in the lower 50th, below the 50th percentile, at least tended to remain in operation longer than businesses that pay above the 50th percentile. If you run through in your mind a number of businesses all pursuing the goal of paying their employees at the 50th percentile, you'll see that over a number of cycles that drives wages up significantly. It's essentially a demonstration of the Lake Wobegon principle, a world in which all of the children are above average. The same happens with employee pay. Whenever an employee says, "You're not paying me enough," there is just one useful and rational response to that observation, and that response is, perhaps you should seek employment elsewhere. But if we adopt this language referencing the 50th percentile, it's going to make it much tougher for GVR to make that useful, rational response. Instead, I think we would have at least a moral duty to say to an employee who says, "You're not paying me at the 50th percentile of like employees in this industry." We would instead have to demonstrate in some way to that employee that we were in fact doing that, which is a thoroughly silly thing for a business to do. I'm therefore moving now that highlighted yellow portion that Scott has helpfully highlighted, that one sentence, be deleted from the compensation philosophy, because, in my opinion, it would create a lot more problems than it would solve. So that's my motion.
Laura,
I know on the agenda it says adopt compensation philosophy, but on the board of directors regular meeting, it says adopt a compensation policy. And I think we're kind of ahead of that.
I'm sorry, did I miss something? On the Board of Directors agenda, it states adopt compensation philosophy, and you're saying that
Here it says policy.
oh, I see. The heading.
So which one
the
are we
agenda.
doing?
Oh. It's a philosophy, and in fact, the attachment which is before you does say philosophy, so it's not it's a philosophy. And I think that was just an error. It was intended to say philosophy.
So on Bart's proposal, I second that. Take out that wording about the 50% out.
Is there any other comments, Steve?
Yeah, I think you could take that out about the 50th percentile if the board wants to. I'm not crazy, I mean, I'm not dead against it, but I think you should leave the first sentence in, the first part of that sentence in about meeting the labor market, and then maybe stop there.
Would that be a friendly amendment?
No.
You know, as long as the language with the 50th percentile is left out, I could live with that. I would regard that as a friendly amendment.
So the friendly amendment would be to, excuse me, GVR's compensation philosophy includes a strategy to eventually meet the labor market, period. Is that correct?
Right.
Do I have a second on the friendly amendment?
You could
So
still use
moved.
the rest.
Second.
Which may require more than one fiscal year to achieve.
I'm sorry, Bev, I didn't hear it.
I'm sorry. I think you could still leave in the rest of the sentence, which may require more than one fiscal year to achieve.
Oh, I see. So take out by aligning the wording, by aligning its pay ranges to the 50th percentile of the respective market ranges. So we'd take out that portion of the sentence. Bart?
On reflection, leaving that language in seems to imply that GVR is not meeting the labor market presently, which I don't believe is the case. I think GVR is meeting the labor market. So I guess I'm reversing ground, and I apologize, Steve, but I'm reversing ground. I would rather just delete that whole sentence.
I don't think it implies that at all. It just says meet the labor market. It doesn't imply that we're not or are meeting it now.
Well, the words are, we're going to eventually meet the labor market. The only way to eventually meet the labor market is by starting out not meeting the labor market.
Well, you could go backwards.
I think we had an expert help prepare this, and I think she did her research, and we are not meeting the current labor market.
I gathered from what she had to say, and I watched it twice, once at the Fiscal Affairs Committee meeting and once when it was at the board workshop. And I thought that was correct, that she had done her research and that we were not necessarily meeting the 50 percentile at that point. So what we have at the moment then is a motion by Bart and a second by Laurel to delete that sentence. Read the sentence. I can't see that far.
Can I read it, Kathy?
I'm reading the printout. Do you want to read that, Bart?
GVR's compensation philosophy includes a strategy to eventually close the labor market by aligning its pay ranges to the 50th percentile of the respective market ranges, which may require more than one fiscal year to achieve. That's the sentence that I've moved to drop from the philosophy.
Okay.
A question for Bart. Bart, do you think they ought to take out the word eventually and just say meet the labor market as a strategy to meet the labor market? Take out eventually, which doesn't say we're not, doesn't say we are. It just says that we want, that's what our goal is to always meet that labor market.
Well, Ted, there's so much in that philosophy above the paragraph we're talking about. I really don't think that sentence adds enough to warrant leaving it in there.
No, I'm just saying, you're saying you're saying to leave in the compensation philosophy includes a strategy to eventually meet the labor market. I think that's what your proposal is. You're not, and so I'm just saying also take out the word eventually. Because you were complaining that eventually that implies that we're not doing it. So I'm saying take that out and then read it.
If there's any chance that that will get us out of here shortly, I'm solidly behind it.
Can you repeat the motion at this point?
I think what Ted is suggesting that we just delete the word eventually so that it reads GVR's compensation philosophy includes a strategy to meet the labor market by aligning its pay ranges to the 50th. No,
No, just market period.
Nancy, how about you? Scott's going to read it.
GVR's compensation, this is what we have on the table right now. GVR's compensation philosophy includes a strategy to meet the labor market.
Okay,
Can we call for a vote?
okay. So what Scott just read, is that okay with you, Bob?
You betcha.
Okay, and Laurel, you have the second?
It's anonymous.
Okay, so that's what we're voting on. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Uh, 12, so it's unanimous. Thank you very much, everybody.
Anonymous.
Okay, so what we need to do at this point is to adopt a compensation philosophy as amended. And Jim has a motion. Second. Bev is the second, and everybody in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, and it's unanimous. Thank you very much, everybody. Okay, next item is to adopt the board credo. We discussed this again at the same board workshop or work session on January 18th. I don't believe there was, pardon? Yeah, we did. Well, to be sure, I went back and checked the agenda item in the minutes, and so, yeah, we did discuss it. It wasn't a long discussion, I will say that. No.
I can't hear the second voice.
Okay. Anyway, it was a conversation. Laurel thought we have not discussed it at the January 18th meeting, but the board did discuss it during the January 18th work session. So now we're asking for the board to adopt this as the board credo, and I'll read it. Our purpose is to serve. Well, you had the philosophy in front of you too. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to read this one paragraph. Our purpose is to serve the best interests of our current and future members through responsible and effective governance of GVR. We represent all members and seek to ensure that all community interests are understood and considered in our decision making. And I'm not going to read all the bullet points and that type of thing, but I would entertain a motion, or I will make a motion to adopt the board credo. Second. Thank you, Beth, and Beth Dingman has a second. So all in favor of adopting?
Discussion.
Go ahead.
You know me, I love a good credo, but it's unclear to me what exactly the purpose of this credo is. I mean, everything in it seems to be very self-evident. It's essentially a list of platitudes. I'm not even sure where the credo is supposed to go in the world of GVR governance. I don't know if we're on the way to creating a special repository of credos, platitudes, chivalrous homilies and cliches. But if that's what we're doing, I don't know what the point of it is. So I guess my question is, what important governance purpose would be served by adopting the credo? And if the board does adopt it, where does it go?
Go ahead, Scott.
Thank you. My recollection, I'm going to attempt to pull this up, but this was an action item in goal 5 of your strategic plan that was adopted in 2021. And it was to create either a credo or rules of engagement, something along those lines. And when you met with the consultant, I'm getting my consultants confused, but Jenny Carrillo during the retreat, you all participated in an exercise where you walked around the room and identified the things that were important to you in terms of a high functioning governance structure. And based on that, she pulled together and developed this draft, which has had a few iterations since then. But that's the background on where this came from. These are supposed to be rules of engagement, how you're going to function with one another at board meetings, outside of board meetings, who you're going to represent and how you're going to do it. And if you'd like, I can pull up the strategic plan. If you don't need me to do that, then that's fine, because it'll probably take me 10 minutes anyway.
Art,
These aren't really rules of engagement or rules of any kind at all. These are just hortatory or aspirational slogans. I don't see what purpose they serve. And I still don't know where they're going to go. I mean, are they going to be some sort of special appendage to the CPM or what? Are we going to post them in convenient walls? I just don't get it.
well, in my humble opinion, we have a mission statement that is for the members. We have a vision statement, which is also for the members, and this credo is for this board. How we are going to best serve the interests of our members. Anybody else?
Yes, I would, just listening to this last discussion and also what I've said before is basically where we talk that we commit to our members. One of the things is to abide by the current GVR governing documents. That needs to be in there because that's basically what we're talking about. And I've asked for it before and I thought it was put in, but then I saw this one and it's not. But I would move that we add to the first set of bullets at the bottom is that we commit to abide by the current GVR governing documents. And that would cover a lot of this.
On the first page.
I apologize, I'm not going to be able to add that because I'm looking at a PDF and not a Word document. So my error. But we will write that down. But that would be the last bullet, Director Boyette, that you're proposing.
That would be, as I understand, that would be we commit to our members and, or we could have it, or we personally strive to either one, but it would just be one of the ones on there that we commit to be governed by, to abide by the current GVR governing documents.
Nancy, have you got that? Okay,
No, first one. I
okay.
think.
This would be another bullet at the end of, as individually elected board members, we commit to our members. And it would be an additional bullet to abide by the current governing documents. Is that correct, Ted?
That is correct.
So we have a motion, but we need second. No, we have a second. Beth was the second on that. So any other discussion? Steve?
Yeah, I think another reason for this is we should have some sort of a guide for civilized behavior, sort of like Robbie's code. We tend to drift sometimes as a board. And I think we need something maybe to bring us back to reality. I mean, we could all come on here with weapons and whoever has the best weapons wins the vote. But I don't think that's what we want to do. So I think this may be a little silly in some people's minds, but I think it just makes us a little bit more professional. And I wasn't at the retreat, but I heartily endorse this credo as a good idea. And I'm going to vote for it. Thank you.
Barbara?
My question is, where do we put it? Where does it sit? Where is it among all of our documents?
Well, Scott and I had kind of discussed that, and I was suggesting to him that it be printed on each agenda that we do. Kind of, well, hang on, guys. I mean, everything else that we send out has our mission statement, has our vision statement. We don't have to put the credo on all of those documents as they go out now, but seems to me, I mean, it's not that big of it's 3 sentences. So it seems to me we ought to be able to find a spot, even if it's in smaller print, on each agenda. That was my recommendation to Scott. We didn't make an agreement. Yes, the first paragraph. Well, I see what you're saying.
Is there any reason it can't go in the CPM?
I think if it's not going to go in the CPM, it becomes just another governing document. It can certainly go on the website that way. We will mention, of course, the first paragraph at the beginning of each meeting, or there's a lot of things that you could do. Some places, as Director Hillier suggested, you frame it, you put it on the wall. Hopefully it doesn't get dust on it, because you want to be able to remind it regularly to subscribe to this credo, if in fact you do as a board. So I think there's all kinds of creative ideas on how to get the message out there to remind yourselves as well as your members that you do in fact subscribe to this credo as a board.
Is there any other discussion on this? Any comments from the members?
You know,
I'm
we have
sorry.
a motion on the table
And a second.
and a second to add something. First, we need to vote on that. And then we need to vote on whether if that passes, whether we want to go for the whole thing. If that fails, whether we want to go for what's here. Right?
Okay.
Do you mind if I ask Nancy to just reconfirm exactly what the motion has been and who has given a first and a second on this item?
Right. I'm wondering, Ted's item should be an amendment, I do believe.
Right.
With a second. I don't believe we have a second for that.
I agree.
Okay.
Second,
Who is that?
that was
Bev Lawless.
And that was to add, we commit to abide by the current GVR governing document.
Okay,
Bullet
right.
under the individual elected board.
Okay.
Right.
So we'll vote on the amendment first. All those in favor of including the amendment to the board credo, please raise your hand. One, two, three, four, five, six, 7, 8. So there's 8 yeses to the amendment. All those opposed to the amendment? 1, 2, 3. And there's 3 opposing. So the amendment carries, and now, pardon?
Are there any abstentions? Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Are there any abstentions? I'm sorry, Laura. Thank you. And who?
I thought she
No.
voted.
Okay, now we will vote on adopting the amendment the credo as amended. And we have a motion by myself and a second by Beth. So everybody in favor, please raise your hand.
and just to be sure, before I vote, where's it going? It's not going in the CPM, right?
No,
It's going on the website.
and wherever else the board wants it to.
Okay.
It's a separate governing document if we vote for it. It becomes a separate governing document or another governing document.
Okay, all in favor, please raise your hand. 8, 9, 10. So we have 10 yeses. And all those opposing? 1, and abstention? 1. Okay. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. So we're moving on to Part C, CPM Part 3 Committee, Section 1 only. Donna, could you give us an overview?
Sure. Sure, we've seen this before, and hopefully you've all had a chance to look it over because we have made significant changes based on the meetings that there was a board meeting in, let me think here, November 16th was I first look at it, and we didn't get through it all, but there was a lot of discussion. There was no board meeting in December, so it came back to the January 18th work session. And there was a good discussion at that time. So at our next BAC meeting, which was after that, I guess February 14th was our next chance as a BAC committee to look at it. And that was because we did not get it on the January 25th board meeting because there was a problem with there was several problems. So anyway, it was pulled, and it is now been through the BAC on February 14th, and they approved it 100% unanimous, what I have presented here. And I do want to make it clear to everyone that this is only Part 3, Section 1. And Section 1 deals with how committees are formed and how they do their work, basically, and how we retain members, hopefully, so that committees have continuity from year to year. So what this means is that if we can approve it today, it will be updated to the BAC or to the CPM, and then next year's BAC committee will be tasked with reaching out to each of the standing committees to work on their duties and responsibilities. And that will be a big job. And that is actually one of the issues that we address in this, is that we want committees to pass from year to year the tasks they are working on, so that they don't just get ignored. And we've seen that, and some of the things that have come up today point to that. And it actually, one of the things that came up today that Laurel brought up about the major capital project recommendation, that's something that needs to go from P&E and then get passed to FAC and at some point to the board. And so we need the duties and responsibilities to clarify all of that. So what I have here as a recommendation, let me get a look at it here. As I move, the Board of Directors approve the recommendation from Board Affairs Committee for the clean version as attached of Part 3 Committees Section 1. And I'd like a second.
Second.
Thank you. And what
Donna has a motion and Laurel has a second. And now
okay,
we
great.
Can I ask a quick question, Kathy?
Sure,
And
I
that
would definitely. Go ahead.
is, what should we tell GVR members who are looking for the board candidate meet and greet? I mean, it was supposed to start at 4, if I'm correct.
Yeah. Yeah, this could take a while, Donna. I'm wondering if
I would call for a vote on it.
Yeah, I think we should vote. I think if you've studied page 59 and so forth, what I've done is I have actually put in blue all of the changes that we've made based on the November board meeting and the work session in January. So the board has really gone through this twice, and we've considered everything that they said. And then a lot of times, we've had agreed, to kind of soften some of our original recommendations. But again, the recommendations, came through the continuity committee. That was a subgroup of BAC. We looked at best practices for nonprofit boards. We contacted all of the, large recreation centers like we are to look at how they handled committees. One of the big things that we found is that every one of them, the committee members for their various standing committees had to be approved by the board. And of course, that goes against our bylaws currently. And that was why it was pulled from our January 25th, because we will have to do this in the right order. But our feeling was that this is important, that if we can get it in place, and that can be, again, dealt with next year, because it would take a bylaws change. But I hope that everyone has read this and I can answer any questions. If you want to ask questions before we vote on it.
I think that they've done an excellent job in dealing with the issues that we went over in the sessions last month. And I would just call for the vote, because I think she's done, the BAC's done a really good job of dealing with and putting in place the things that were concerns, according to my memory of what we talked about.
Okay,
I agree.
okay, so we have a call for the vote. So all those in favor of passing the CPM Part 3 committees as submitted, oh my goodness. I'm still
Part 3, Section 1.
in favor. It looks like it's unanimous, Donna. Thank you much.
Yay! Finally.
Thank you for all of your hard work.
Okay. I think it's a good product. I think it'll be a big benefit to us down the road. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam President, it's 4:20. I move adjourn.
I'm gonna call. Yeah, I'd like to call for a vote on your movement, Steve, because we only have two more things. We have Bart's request, and then we also have the committee report.
I'm going to have to leave. I'm going to my Ash Wednesday.
No.
Okay. So we will have one board member that needs to leave. Can everybody else stay to finish up? Can Bev?
Again, I think, Bart's, proposal is too soon. It should wait until after we get our bids from the other projects. And I think we should hear from any members that want to speak, and then adjourn to the meet and greet.
Bart?
No, I haven't said anything yet in support of the motion. So I'll say it now. When I read Scott's long message that was linked on the February 10th e-blast, I had one main thought at the end, and that was that it was a cry for help. Indeed, several other GVR members have since said the same thing to me. This is Scott's cry for help. As I note in the background and justification for this motion, Scott's chief complaint, at least as I see it, is that he didn't have guidance from the board sufficient to realize that a $900,000 glass arts project, whether with or without more than one bid, was to many board members a questionable way to spend that much GVR money. It's unclear to me why Scott didn't realize this, as he has noted several times, including today. the consensus of the board in May of 2022 was that this project should cost about 500,000, not 900,000. And I'll also add that everybody in this room realizes that when all is said and done and this project is made operational, that price will certainly be over $1 million. So, being a very compassionate and empathetic person, I prepared this motion, which I hope will be a productive response to the cry for help. If the motion is passed, we'll move forward to being able to assess a more modest, more practical, and more reasonable option than the current very grand project that we considered in January. I will finally note that, as Scott has observed and as others of us have observed, there is no actual urgency to this project. Glass Arts is operating just as it has for the last 7 years, churning out various glass art items. I would rather do this right than feel any urgency to do it in a very unnecessarily expensive way.
Well, I think this is going to be a much longer discussion than anybody wants to wait for. And again, I think it should wait until our next meeting, our next regular board meeting. And I think we need to end our day and get on with the members. Let the members speak if they would like and get on with the meet and greet. And if these are my questions. These are my questions regarding your proposal. So like I said, it's going to be a long discussion. You're not going to be done in 2 minutes.
Ted, if being as how you're our resident expert on parliamentarian, if Bart's motion were to fail today, would we not just continue on with what we had, actions that we've had up until this point? In other words, we have sent out RFPs.
Yeah.
Are we waiting for bids? So would it not just revert back to that? Or
Well,
am I-
if Bart's motion does not carry, Bart's motion is to change what we've already put in place. So if it doesn't carry, yes, it would be continue on as it were, as though nothing had happened in the interim.
Now, just as a matter of accuracy, my motion doesn't propose to change anything about the large $900,000 project proposal or bids. My proposal, my motion is that we direct Scott to prepare a separate project of approximately 2,500 square feet.
So you're recommending that we do something that after our special meeting in 2 weeks or so is superfluous to give a bunch of extra work for staff? Is that what you're proposing there?
Well, you seem to be assuming that the meeting in a week or 2 weeks, whenever it is going to render the question moot. That may not be so.
Well, that's right. But if it is so, I'd say your motion should come after that decision has been made as a parliamentary procedure.
That's not a matter of parliamentary procedure. I properly made a
Okay,
motion.
Scott, I'm sorry, Bart, let's not argue. Let's just go to a vote. Let the Madam President go ahead and call for a vote if she wants to, or make a determination on how she would like to do it. That is parliamentary. She can do that.
I'm sorry, I totally missed who was the second on that, Bart? You made the motion. Who was the second? Jim Carden is the second. So now we have discussion at this point.
So the previous discussion doesn't count?
No.
If somebody was to call the vote, that would make this
Like
moot.
Bev said, this is going to take a while, so if we want to do this, we should be prepared to do that. I'd like to reiterate my motion to adjourn and take a vote on that first.
If there is a motion to adjourn parliamentary wise, you've got to go ahead and take a vote on that. But that means immediate adjournment, and you wouldn't get the other two items in that you thought about.
Okay, so
is there a second to Steve's motion to adjourn?
Second.
Second.
I'm sorry, was that you, Bart, that motion to second? Okay, let's take a vote then. We have a motion to adjourn by Steve Gilbert and a second by Bart Hillier. All those in favor? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And so the vote is 10 yeses. And all those not in favor, please raise your hand.
We have members that would like to speak. Could we allow that?
And I apologize to everybody that's here that would like to comment on that, but we just adjourned the meeting.
But they can speak if you would like to allow them, but it's not part of the meeting. It would not be in the official minutes that they spoke.
Yeah. Yeah. Please come. Okay.